India, one of the most powerful socioeconomic countries in the world. It has the sixth largest GDP across the globe. It's one of the most dynamic countries in the world in terms of economic performance. However, why does the Indian GDP per capita fall below global average? Numerous contributing factors, of which vast income gaps in the population, lack of family planning, and the struggle to provide education to youth are considered to be one of the most causative. The income inequality of a country is determined by the difference in earning between the top 10% by the income earned by the poorest 10% of households. This is an upward trend signifying that year by year, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. The unequal divide may be attributed to the richest 10% own 80.7% of the country's wealth as of 2016. Despite the exponential growth, the Indian GDP per capita is still on a lower threshold. In rural villages, families have a large number of offspring. This stems from the lack of family planning and education. This contributes to lower income GDP per capita. The thought process that persists is that more offspring translates to more hands that join in increasing income growth, in particular male heirs. In addition, offspring are considered an insurance for care in their old age. However, an increase in the primary sector workforce does not contribute highly to the total GDP. This reduces the country's GDP per capita as the children who are being born would not be capable of producing high levels of output in the future, due to lack of education and restriction to continue traditional family trade in rural areas. Therefore, this can have a significant impact on the country's GDP per capita. In an effort to improve the quality of life for the coming generations, India is focusing on the implementation of the Standard Development Goals created by the UN. Access to quality education across the nation is considered vital. In support of this, in 2009, the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act ensured free education for children of age 6 to 14 years old. Another issue plaguing success in this regard is overpopulation. Hence, it's only fair to compare countries experiencing similar issues such as China. In comparison, the pursuit of education in China is close to 190%. The illiteracy rate in China is a mere 5.28% compared to India's 29%. In addition, it is also recorded that the Indian government invests only 4% of the country's gross domestic product into education. This is an inadequate quantity because education is one of the three main pillars: GDP per capita, life expectancy, and the pursuit of higher education of the Human Development Index. This index showcases the quality of life in a country. Currently, the Indian HDI has a score of 0.624. This HDI value has declined due to the poor quantity years of schooling attended by children across the country. India had 11.7 expected mean years of schooling. However, the mean years of schooling was a mere 6.3 years. This means that the prediction of students attending higher education was off by 85%. It was calculated that the average Indian is only educated until completing primary school. This may have been done due to the lack of awareness spread in rural villages. Some villagers may believe that it's more reasonable to drop their children out of school and would persuade them to work in the farm as they can help support their family. In their ideology, they believe that it would be an extra pair of hands to work on the field. Some villagers may not support higher education as it may promote liberal thinking, non-traditional values, and move to urbanization. This is the reason why nearly 50% of the Indian workforce works in the primary sector. This group of people only contribute to 17.9% of the country's GDP. This goes to show that the Indian economy is driven by the higher and middle class. Indian education at times can be very intense, with the increasing amounts of peer pressure bringing out the academic best in students. With English as a second language along with the regional as well as national language enhances communication skills. India has been successful in their movement towards a universal school enrollment and in achieving policies to address educational inequalities. A few examples of these inequalities would be gender inequalities, casteism, discrimination against the physically and mentally challenged, and socioeconomic status. However, there are still multiple reasons to why the Indian educational system would not progress significantly in the near future. Indian professors are expected to teach the entire syllabus prescribed by the university or school over a period of time. This style of teaching rules out time for discussion and debate in the class. Unlike Indian professors, American professors create their own syllabus and evaluate the students without the help of external examiners. Due to lack of expendable income, schools adopt to more traditional paper courses rather than experimental, innovative projects, thus limiting the child's creativity. The adaptation of traditional, hindsighted Western education developed in the British Raj has stifled the leadership spirit and potential because the educational system lacks leadership and propagates submissive spirit. In a few developing states like Bihar, the ratio goes as high as 57 students to one teacher. The global average student-to-teacher ratio is approximately 20:1, thus making the ratio in a few Indian states exceed this margin by an astounding 200%. The higher secondary school system in particular is facing a crisis. There is an imbalance in the ratio of science and mathematics to qualified graduates pursuing teachers as a profession as compared to the arts and humanities. This in part is due to higher paying lucrative jobs in STEM subjects in the work field. One of the possible solutions to this problem would be increasing the minimum wage of teachers to make it more attractive for young people to take it up as a profession. Teachers who work in low-income private schools earn an annual wage of 5,000 to 20,000 rupees a year, which can be at par or lower than that of unskilled laborers in metropolitan cities. At the secondary level, 29% of students age group 10 to 14 years receive education at private institutions. This creates a division in the accessibility to higher quality education. Government-run institutions have reservation quota for the backward class and minorities, reaching a maximum of 50% or higher of seats. This holds true in allotment of teaching jobs as well as diluting the quality. In India, private tuitions parallel the formal system of education, particularly in higher grades, to supplement academic support and overcome school inadequacies with a focus on securing higher marks in public standardized tests. In recent years, private tutoring emerged as a major force as a result of both demand and market mechanism attracting talented teachers away from the formal system and allowing for less involvement and responsibilities in that state. An astounding average of 44.7% was seeking private tutoring for one or more subjects at the secondary level. Again observed was private tuition divide in rural areas as compared to urban areas, thus diluting the pool of qualified teachers in the public school system. There must be a paradigm shift in the teaching style, embracing techno-pedagogic methods to engage and prepare our youth for the future. We should move away from a subject approach towards a disciplined approach to make learning more applicable and relevant. Discussion on ways of reasoning, thinking, and proving should be the focus of the curriculum. To make a meaningful change, visionary bureaucrats, elected politicians, civic leaders, committed corporates are required to pool their efforts and nurture movements like Teach India that teach youth to give back to society.
We, as a society, can invest in our communities and the future of our education. Given the opportunity, the younger generation will thrive and rise to the challenge, taking India forward into the 21st century.